Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough was published in 2020 by Triumph Press. Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth followed, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. Next was Raised by These Wolves, Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through the Foster Care and Court Systems, came out as a bestseller the same day, July 19th. And feel free to buy me a cup of coffee to help keep this podcast going. I've got a brand new guest. I'm happy to have Isabella Reyes Alfano on. She's been going through a very adversarial divorce because of the nature of the divorce and various TROs and FROs, domestic violence and child endangerment issues which caused the family to be reported to the DCP&P under the care and custody of DCP&P, and her husband's behavior did not improve for over 2 years. They have watched as he didn't comply with judicial orders that were put in place by the judges and the FN matter, and we'll discuss this later, and the FM matter. She's here to discuss some of the experiences she's had to go through, the Title IX and the Title 30 process, and advocating for her children not to be put into the foster care system. She's here to support Kayden's bill and Kayden's law, which was introduced and currently in committee in the state of New Jersey. She'd like to share all of this with you. This bill has been given the support needed to provide the protections for family that are at risk and the system that is financially incentivized to fuel the adversarial conflict. I totally welcome you, Isabella Reyes Alfano, and I'm so very sorry you're going through this. And how did this all start in the beginning for you?
Oh, well, thank you, Marianne, for having me as your guest. Unfortunately, no one wants to be put in this type of situation. Um, as you mentioned, I've been going through a very adversarial divorce, been married for 15 years, separated for 4.5 years. I was in a loveless and unhappy marriage. My husband was very controlling and was a bully that liked physical violence. And to keep the family in line, he used whatever means necessary to do that. He wasn't very helpful as a husband. He does not, help around the house or with child rearing. We both worked full time. And even after my twins were born, I didn't have the option to stay home. So it was really a strange dynamic because it was still having to go to work, having to have young children and not really be given like the support at home. So currently we have 13-year-old twins. I have a boy and a girl. Our son is on the spectrum. He is autistic. He was diagnosed at 16 months. I knew right away that, there was an issue, but, as with most families that have children with disabilities, it is an added strain. So it wasn't surprising that things would escalate as bad as they did. But I think most people say, like, when did you find out that the marriage was really in trouble? And I'd have to say, honestly, that it was early on. So his mask dropped pretty quickly. So he had no children. I had a daughter from my first marriage. He wanted children. And, 5 months after we were married, we found out we were expecting. 14 weeks into my pregnancy, we found out we were having twins, which, for me was, we were in love, happy. And then at 23 weeks, we got news that I was having issues with my pregnancy. At that point, I was already high risk because of my age. 5 months before, I was actually hospitalized for being anemic and gestational diabetes. Apparently, fun fact, ladies, over 35, your body seems to be, has a going out of business sale. So the likelihood of having spontaneous twins after the age of 35 actually increases. So for me, it was a blessing that here I was at my age having these two children. But again, there were so many things that were causing it to be stressful. And so at 35 weeks, we went in and we found out that our son's placenta was actually detaching from the uterine lining. So, of course, our doctor, explained that the rate of the detachment versus how long of gestational time that was required, that he was very concerned about the viability of our son. And, he went into the increased risk of fetal death, or that my son would be blind, suffer from mental delays or disabilities that would really impact his quality of life and ours based on the care that he would potentially require. And at that time, we're having this conversation and, he looks at both of us and he talks about a selective abortion. And so based on that, I was put in a place where, the conversation was, you have one child that has no issue. They said that my daughter was in the penthouse of the uterus and my son was in the basement. Because they were spontaneous twins. She was obviously conceived first, and 2 or 3 days later in the ovulation cycle, he was conceived. Which is like wonderful, because technology at that point, they could see how many days of gestation. You saw like the variation, the various age difference, but because of his placement, his viability was at risk. And the doctor kind of put it out there to me, saying how if we decided to have, to abort Vinny, that it would be safer for me and for our daughter, Isabella, because she would have like the full uterus and the full environment for, healthy growth and development. And, sitting in the office, you're kind of like thinking like everything that you had been planning in life has changed. And
so even stressful.
So even after discussing like all the worst case scenarios, we were given 24 hours to, make up that decision. And, I didn't even stop. I didn't even look to my right. I just said, I don't need the time. I just, my children are named, they're loved, and whatever it is that happens will happen. Because I truly believe that like when God winks and things happen, especially as it happened with us, that I couldn't do that. Any mother out there, you're feeling your children moving. And that was just not an option for me. I had decided I was going to keep them both. So I always say, like, I guess, why am I telling you this? Because we talked about, like, when did I know that my marriage was over? So on the drive home, very quiet. And, he's looking at me and then he says, well, don't you want to discuss it? And I was like, I said, talk about what? What are we discussing? And, screaming at me, at that point.
He put all that on you.
Yeah. He says, we need to discuss these options. But he never raised his voice at me. So it's like, from his perspective, there were all these reasons why, it just made perfect sense for me to abort my son. What was the first, it was like the first time that I ever saw him, react this way. And I just told him that I would not entertain the conversation, that whatever needs that my son would have, that, he told me then that it would be my responsibility, that he did not want any to deal with doctor appointments or anything. And that we were perfectly lucky, because he always wanted a daughter anyway. And, why complicate a situation? So when you fast forward
Mm-hmm.
everything, very difficult pregnancy, very difficult birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was very difficult to co-parent with him while we were married. But at that point, he wasn't hitting me. He wasn't violent at that point with me. But it was definitely um, something that impacted
Mm-hmm.
our relationship, because even when um, we started to see the signs that Vinny was having issues, he wouldn't go to the doctor's appointments with me. Like he wouldn't. Um, he just, I don't know if it was more denial or at that point just solidifying what he told me that he was going to be. Now, as far as his daughter, um, it was, everything was no problem with Bella. Like he would take her on errands. He
Mm-hmm.
would take her on but he was always put Vinny to the side and always mistreated Vinny. And as he got older, the challenges that faced Vinny, it was that he would lose his temper. He would, act out. He was always physical. So I was always like, Vinny would have these instances where we would go into a restaurant and the smells would drive him to become very upset. So he would start throwing up. So I,
Mm-hmm.
of course, carried, plastic bags to catch his vomit, or know that we would not be able to have restaurant meals. So Vinny and I would sit outside and eat in a car or something, so that Bella and him can have like the experience of, because I didn't want her not to have like an experience, but Vinny early on had a lot of very sensory challenges, and so it
Oh.
was always the point where it was like separate. Now, as the divorce became, well, even when he had challenges, like even like schools had issues with his IEP or what have you. There was one instance in the public school system where my son was physically assaulted by a paraprofessional. And, I had to go and be the one that fought against the Board of Ed to get him out of that school system and everything else. I had to take FMLA. I was the nothing. Like he did not get involved with any of it. But it always was the case because it just, I sensed, and even like when, as the children got older, they definitely knew the differences between, how they were treated. And to a point that even like family members and the best man and the maid of honor, they had to even have like some type of intervention, like saying like, this is your son, he's feeling not loved, he's feeling not included. And, but that's how obvious it was for anyone inside of our very intimate circle.
Mm-hmm. So he was very verbally abusive, you would say.
Oh, from the beginning, at
Mm-hmm.
those stages, it was verbal abuse, and then it became physical with Vinny. So I was to a point where Vinny was just my responsibility. I didn't want to have him in a situation where he would not be safe.
Oh.
Uh, so it was always, you wanted this, and I was I was okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So when things got really bad was in about 2018. Uh, I noticed something was different as far as, our physical relationships. And I said, what's wrong? Is it your diabetes? What's going on? Because as bad as our divorce, as our marriage was, I still felt like a necessity to, be his wife and, at least, but I knew something was different.
Mm-hmm.
And he started to tell me, oh, you're being insecure, you
Mm.
know, um, saying how I was, fat, and all these things. And then he said that, well, maybe it's you, because I was like, are you, is something going on? Do you want to tell me anything? And he's like, no. I was like, maybe it's you. He's like, you go on business trips. Maybe you're the one cheating. So, the incorporation of
Mm-hmm.
questioning someone, and instead of having any type of accountability, they turn it around on you.
Projection, correct. Yeah.
So at that point, I said, oh no, absolutely not. I am, raised from a very traditional family. It was just not something that I would consider, no matter how unhappy I was. And I was like, I'm the mother of your children. I'm your wife. Now you're calling me a whore. At that point, I said, you know what? We'll take polygraph tests. I said, I will take a polygraph test. You will take a polygraph test.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, every time I speak to people about this, they look at me like, what do you mean? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I 100%. We took polygraph test, Marianne. I don't know if you've heard
Wow.
that before.
Oh yeah. Not on this podcast. No one's ever brought up that they ever did this with their spouse.
Okay.
Wow.
So what ended up happening is that during the polygraph exam, they ask you, what 3 questions do you want? And obviously sexual contact was, you know, primary question, along with 2 other ones that I kind of was curious about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the main question obviously was sex outside and sexual contact outside of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to disclose everything. So I had to disclose that there were 3 times
Mm-hmm.
that 3 men had physically touched me without me requesting it. So that means, you know, I work in the travel industry for over 30 years. I go out and I negotiate contracts. I have deal with a whole bunch of people. So of course the question was based on the fact like welcomed contact. So obviously that was not welcomed and I put a stop to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
as they're strapping him in, all of a sudden he goes, wait a minute, I have to disclose that there were, you know, acts of sexual contact that he had to tell me about. Mind you, they're strapping him in. And mind you, there's 6 months of me, you know, being called fat, stupid, insecure. And let's not forget that he called me a whore.
Mm-hmm.
So he discloses that he went with his friends from the Sons of Italy, and they go to this gentleman's club where, and mind you, he told me this at that point because he felt like if I explain it to her, that maybe she'll kind of like, hey, boys will be boys type of thing. But I'm living there watching him like telling me all this, like all he kept saying was like, I didn't pay for it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, there was no accountability, no sorry, no anything. I did not pay for it. And, you know, nothing as far as, so I pass. And I love this conversation. So, you know, when you're dealing with a narcissist,
Right.
when these are like, there's a whole bunch of key things. And I think when I sent you the context of this interview, I sent you a whole bunch of things where there's recordings of just no accountability. But the whole thing of I did not pay for it was what he leaned on. And this is the mind games that he did. He said, well, I passed the polygraph test because I admitted that I had sex with a prostitute and I got a hand job, but I did not pay for it. So in the polygraph test, it says that he passed because he had disclosed it. But wait, there's a second test that he can't deny because I also recorded that one. But that was his version of passing the polygraph test because his friends took him out to be with an escort. And he felt that I disclosed to you that, in the recording, he goes, but don't you know how bad it made me feel that I'm hiding it from you?
Yeah, they all do this.
And yeah. But, you know, and these are people that, you know, and I don't care what other people do in their marriage. Like, I'm not judging other people in their marriage. If that's what they want to do, that's I know that there was like, you know, people that may have open marriages in those clubs or may have this understanding that, but that was not my marriage arrangement. So we got home again, opened up the door to the car, and I promptly vomited all over the driveway because that was my reaction to, you know, I didn't pay for it. So after that, things became, you know, very difficult. I didn't want to sleep with him. I threw him out of the room, minimizing my feelings. but then it became a lot more physical. Then he was like, this is my bed. I have every right to be here. Things became increasingly violent between us. I'm going to fast forward to just trying to keep my family together and just trying to, in my mind, I kept saying, you know, my daughter at least had her nuclear family. I believe in the nuclear family. And all I wanted was just to just exist. And, but it was horrible.
I'm sorry.
But and even trying to get through just life and existing, I just didn't want him touching me or just trying to get through life. So I'm going to fast forward to 2020, where he's telling me how I just should forgive him. And at this point, I'm now being yelled at and threatened because I'm the reason why our marriage cannot move forward. Because, I'm the person, the whole consistent gaslighting as far as, you're stopping us from being happy. You're the one, and he's still going to his Sons of Italy meetings. They're all like, yay, they're all doing their thing. So interesting.
Right.
So in 2020, he's telling me that for us to move, and mind you, it's our relationship at this point is getting really violent. Like now he's hitting my son more. He's getting angry because there's like loss of control, because now, I know who you are. Like, months you calling me all of this, and now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, but I was the whore. Like even like his whole family and his sisters, like his sister and his, I heard him on the phone before the polygraph test, like, his cousin had just had a bad divorce, and they were like, oh, she does travel a lot. Like she's very friendly. She's so outgoing. Maybe you're right. And all of a sudden, there was nothing from his side of the family, to the point that even now, his side of the family don't want even anything to do with the children. Like they don't call, they don't visit, they don't do anything. So in 2020, it was getting bad because he was getting more physically violent with me. There were some very, very disturbing things that happened. He was choking me, he was hitting me, he was forcing me to have sex with him. And I was just really disgusted. And it was a mixture of violent, angry, and crying. Why can't you just let it go? And, we can't get past this because you're not allowing it. It's like always like, you're the one doing this. So he says, well, what do I have to do? He goes and we take another polygraph test in February of 2020. Now, this one I recorded. And throughout the whole test, we go to the same person that provided the polygraph test. And she's just, going through like the results of the first one. What are we doing? During the test, we found out that he was emptying out all our bank accounts. So he left us penniless. When he decided to leave, he left me with no money. He took all the money in the account. He took my children's college fund. He failed this test again. So the tests were the same about him. So I found out after the fact that he had a girlfriend that he had been with quite some time. So he failed this polygraph test again. And here we were a month before COVID and the shutting down of the world. Right. So he failed the test the end of February, and here we were now, the world is shutting down. I had just returned from a business trip, getting ready to go on another business trip. It was like a back-to-back travel for me. And my daughter from my first marriage was getting ready to have a baby. So her son, she needed me to watch her other children. So at that point, I had my two grandchildren there. And it was just chaos. It was like all these things, this perfect storm of coming back from a trip, him filling a polygraph test, him then sleeping in my son's room because I did not want, and it's like a lot of stuff happening, and the world is shutting down. My daughter ends up not having the baby at that time. They sent her home, and the grandchildren went home. And here we were raising two children, 9-year-olds, homeschooling. The world is shutting down. And, I'm trying to talk to him as far as how we can at least live together, not it having to be violent. Like I was tired. I was emotionally drained. I was like, I didn't want him hitting me. I didn't want him, and here I was scared to death. I'm like, okay, now the world is shutting down. So now I can't even physically go out of the house to my office. Here I am with a man that I know is dangerous, because the man, he's actually come up behind me saying, you're worth more to me dead than alive. So he was always the type of person that would drink too much, then all of a sudden decide he was going to kill, clean his gun. And and at one time there was, he came up behind me, and he was like, how easy it would be just like to push you down the stairs, and but it was that type of treatment. So like what ended up happening?
Passive aggressive threats.
Oh yeah, no, it was, and my children and I, we lived in fear of him, because you never knew if it was going to be, explosive screaming and yelling, or, what it was going to be. So we all walked on eggshells. And I think I sent you a recording that I took 5 days before he left. And the recording was, I was working upstairs, and our daughter comes to me and goes, Daddy won't let me play the piano. And I was like, well, why? And so I go downstairs, and I happen to be recording, because at this point I'm like, okay, I know he's going to hurt me or the kids. So I'm recording, and all of a sudden I was like, well, what's going on? And that's why I sent you the video, so you can hear it. And all of a sudden he starts screaming and yelling about frustrating. I was like, I need to concentrate. I can't have her do piano, screaming and yelling. It's to the point where when I sent it to my attorney that was representing me in DC PNP, they all look at me as like, this is pathology. Like there's something wrong here. It would be like this. And in the video, you hear and see him scratching and hitting his head, scratching himself. And I'm like, what are you doing? And you hear the video, I'm like, what are you doing? It was that type of uncontrolled, chaotic behavior that we kind of lived in. So what was happening at that point was, of course, his girlfriend was saying how, hey, the world is shutting down. I need you to be here to protect me. And, so all of a sudden, all these situations are happening. He's yelling, he's screaming. And all of a sudden he's like, I can't be here anymore. He grabs his things. He starts, and mind you, I videotaped this too, Marianne. And what I'm going to say to your audience, anyone that's dealing with this type of situation, video and audio tape as much as you can.
Always.
Because when I tell you, I videotaped him gathering his things. There was no fight. He's leaving. He's taking his laptop. And I'm calmly in the video. I was like, where are you going? I don't know yet. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. And then at one point in the video, he turns to the kids. He's like, Mommy, I'm leaving because Mommy and Daddy are fighting, but I still love you. He's telling the kids. And at one point, he's telling the kids, he's like, do you want to walk me down? And the children, they're 9. In the audio, you hear, no, Daddy, that's okay. So even at that age, like the kids, and mind you, no one knows I'm video, because I'm like holding it down, because of course I'm afraid that he's going to see me videotaping him anyway. And even at that age, at 9, they're like, no, it's okay. It's okay. So he leaves the house on April 15th, 2020. 3 weeks after failing the second polygraph test. And it was like more like, it was like maybe 5 weeks that I was living in hell. Hell.
Mm-hmm.
It was hitting, choking. At that point, I had no way to go out. Like we were stuck in this situation. He makes an excuse to leave. He goes to his girlfriend's house. 5 days, now mind you, from April 15th to April 20th, he's FaceTiming the children. And I'm screenshotting his face, his conversations with the kids every day. Okay. He knocks on the door April 20th, 2020. Now, again, this is the beginning of COVID, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We're fighting for food, water, toilet paper. He left me and 9-year-old twins alone in a 5-bedroom colonial to fend for ourselves. Go to his girlfriend's house. He comes back 5 days later. I don't know what happened with them. Maybe they had an argument. Maybe she threw him. I know that she had her 2 children at the house, and maybe they didn't feel comfortable. I don't surmise anything. I don't really care about their relationship. But he comes to the door and knocks on the door and says, "Let me in." I was like, "We've been quarantining. We don't know where you've been."
Mm-hmm.
He then right there and there calls the police. The police come and say, "Can you open, what's going on?" I was like, "He left 5 days ago. We don't know where he's been. My children and I've been quarantining." And I'm talking about the beginning. We're all walking with gloves inside our own houses.
Right,
If you
right.
remember, I'm talking about the beginning of COVID, beginning of COVID. And the police turn to him and say, "Well, where have you been?"
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about where I've been."
Oh.
And he's like, "Oh, well, then go to a hotel or go to your sister's house,
Mm-hmm.
go to family's house." I was like, "I'm not letting him in. I don't even let the police in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even let the police in." He leaves. I don't know where he's been. About 2 days later, after that, he's calling me from JBWS, which is Morris County Family Shelter Displacement for Victims of Domestic Violence. Yes, and Marianne is going to get better. He goes to them and he says that he was assaulted by me. And this is where it gets interesting. They write a letter that he is a victim of domestic violence, and there's a big scratch on his face that had been submitted to the court. Now, I want you to remember, I have a video of him leaving, no scratch. I have FaceTime pictures of him talking, no scratch. The police are called on the 20th of April. I have the report. There's no description that he's in danger, that he was assaulted. There's no physical contact between him and I. The next time that there's any physical contact where I see him is May 2nd of 2020. He goes into the shelter. Now, this is unbeknownst to me, because this is what he does, what he had been doing. He had already been laying the seeds of. So I don't know that he's accusing me of being a domestic violence agitator until months down the road.
Oh, no.
The paperwork comes in for a divorce, which is fine because I don't want to be married anyway. But I did not know until I got the paperwork stating that I was an aggressor. So mind you, I have evidence still that there's no possible way. He uses this letter from the person in JBWS and this photograph as validation that he's a victim of domestic violence. So the parental plan, as far as visitation after the fact, is 8 days a month. He moves eventually to Butt Lake, and I'm still in Parsippany. Now, all his friends from the Sons of Italy and everything else, his lodge brothers, they're all from Parsippany. Okay. So his lodge brothers are the mayor, the councilman, all the councilmen, all the councilmen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyone that's had a dirty, nasty divorce, like even like when the mayor had his nasty divorce, there's certain things that happen in Morris County. So he never complied with any of. So what happened was that I had a TRO against him first. He broke into the house, took guns out of where they were and moved them around, because I was fine that he left, but I did not want him to have firearms. I did not want him to. So he broke into the house without letting me know he was coming, and because of course he was tracking my activity. Like I did, unbeknownst to me, my phone was being monitored. He was turning on and off my alarm system. He was stalking me through the platform. Like he was watching everything that we did. He was setting off my alarm. So at 2 a.m, all of a sudden I would get a notice that the house was not being monitored. So because I know how unstable he is, my main thing was like, this man is to a point where he's like, oh, you're not going to be my wife. You're not going to, give me my control back. I am, and I'm still concerned about him deciding that he'll kill all of us, which is why, the Kayden's bill is, so fundamentally important to me. Which is why I've been, reaching out to the co-sponsors and the sponsors on the bill, because, the history of Kayden's bill is very, close to what's happening to me. Utilizing and weaponizing the system has been like his main way of kind of getting back, to, my children and I. So, he's using the law and the legal system as a means of, enforcing these rights that he's saying that he's being alienated from the kids, which is like, there's proof on that's not even the case. But he's using the legal system, to continue to persecute, us. And I say us now because now the children are old enough, and, I really wanted my children to be able to be around their father in a safe manner. But that's just something that's just not able to happen at this point, which is why I started to send you, conversations with the attorneys in DC PNP. The conversations that even under the care and custody of the court, he was not complying with the orders. And what they would do is that they would just, write it down and say, Mr. Alfano, you have to. And then, at that point, they're like, well, we can't force him to comply with the orders. We can't force him to, see his children if he doesn't want to visit them. But I'll give you an example of what he was doing. Like the main thing, when I told you that he was weaponizing the system, there's over 150 police reports. 150 police reports. And I'll give you an example. The parental schedule was 8 days a month, which he never followed. And let me go back to the TRO I initially had on him. I was tricked by his attorney that if I signed off on the TRO and go into a consent agreement, that my divorce would be expedited, that she would get him to comply, and that there would be no reason for me to fear that he would comply with all the orders in the consent order. I signed the consent order because, again, we've been living in fear of this man, and I didn't want to anger him. I kept thinking, I was like, you know what? I know what happens when he gets angry. You know what? I'm just going to go into this consent order, not go through the FRO process, in hopes that it would calm him down, and for him to see that, yes, I want us to get along. I want us to get, and mind you, this consent order was May of 2020, because at that point he broke into the house, he stole the wedding rings, he stole my father's, like, my mementos. But even that, I just know what happens when he gets angry. So I was like, you know what? I'll sign your consent order. I won't go full FRO. Just make sure that you control him. So stupid me. Another advice: don't sign consent orders. The judicial system, they don't care about your kids, the best interest of your kids. They don't care about the best interest.
They don't.
So don't sign any of those things. And then what happened was that since he had his friendships in place with the police department, what he was doing is the parental order. Let's give you an example what he's done. The parental order says on Thursdays he's supposed to pick up the children at school, right? At school, I'm not physically there at school, Marianne. I cannot obstruct you from seeing your kids. You can physically go and pick them up from school. What he did instead, Marianne, he did not go to their schools, but instead went to the police department and filled out police reports saying, Mrs. Alfano was supposed to deliver these kids to me here at 4 p.m. and I'm here at the police station. She is not, following the judicial order. And they would write them out as gospel. And then you take a stack to the order, like, look, I'm putting in a complaint because she's not following the order. And they gave him a TRO based on that. And based on the fact that he had a letter from JBWS and a scratch on his face that he's a victim of domestic violence. And there was another incident that happened in October 25th, where he called the police department. And he had said that, oh, well, she was supposed to go and pick up our son, because he's on the spectrum, became agitated. And that's why he had to call the police. Well, it turns out that, and, his sister was there to validate it. He was taking my son and choking him against the car. My son is autistic. Okay. He's 10 years old at this point. And at that point, the days that he did take the children were both afraid of being alone with him because, again, his behavior is such where it's like he hits, he yells. And that's why I sent you the recordings of the kids. Even I have bruises. I'm making a slideshow of their bruises and the marks. On the days that he did have them, they always came back dirty, not fed, bruised. Mind you, under the care and the custody of DC PNP. So what ended up happening, even with all his protections, because I always say, like, he used to call me the colored help for 10 years of our marriage, another thing. So, of course, here's this white man that has all the friends in all the great places, his Sons of Italy friends, putting cover. And I went to them, I was like, okay, these are all these reports. How can he be alienated from the children if he can physically go pick them up from school? I'm not physically there.
Right.
I got an FRO because he continued to lie. And there were like 7 different things. And I was able to free myself out of a whole bunch of them because I had my own videos to clear myself. There was one instance where he's physically choking my son against a car. And my son said, Daddy has a gun in his car, because he had a tendency, I told you, of taking his gun and waving it to my children's face. So when the police call me, I'm at the gym. They're like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be here. I was like, no, no, the agreement is that he goes to the house where the children's book bags are and he drops them off at school. I'm like, what's going on? Well, your son is having a panic attack. So I get there, I recorded it, and I'm going to send it to you. And again, I'm making a website of all the conversations I had with DC PNP caseworkers and everything else, because by law in the state of New Jersey, one person consent. I have all the recordings of my interactions with DC PNP. I have all my recordings with my even attorneys that did not work with me. I have all the recordings of interacting with my husband and how adversarial he was. Even when I tried to co-parent, there is no co-parenting with someone that just because when you're dealing with someone that's counter co-parenting,
Right.
When you're counter-parenting, so his work schedule is another thing. Oh, wait. So let me go back to the incident where he's choking our son and waving the gun in his face. I get there from my gym, and the police officer comes to me and goes, "Well, you're supposed to be." I was like, "No, that's not the case. He's supposed to drop off the kids. This is what was discussed and agreed upon." And all of a sudden, I'm recording, and Vinny's screaming, and he's like, "Daddy was hitting me, choking me," and he says, "And Daddy has a gun in his car." Mind you, it's on the recording and it's on the police incident report. So tell me how they grant him an FRO based on the fact that it's in the recording that Vinny said it, not me. So on the FRO request, they're like, "Oh, and she said that the mother." So everything is the mother. I was like, "No, I have video of it." It didn't care. It didn't matter.
No.
So it doesn't matter that I have evidence that I never touched him. It doesn't matter that there's evidence that every time the kids come back, they're the ones that are being hit and abused. It doesn't matter that even under the care and the custody of the DC PNP case that I went through a Title IX and a Title 30 hearing, that even under the care and the custody of the court, Judge Bartlett was the one that she sanctioned his parenting time 3 times. So under the care and the custody of the court, she was like, "Okay, Mr. Alfano, you're not complying with 8 days a month. What we're going to do, first sanction, is take away his parenting time and now mandate 1 hour a week of supervised visits." Okay. And then he was, during the 1 hour a week supervised visits, he was calling the kids stupid, throwing things at them, yelling at them. My kids were having anxiety at the thought of and mind you, DCP&P looked at me like I was the adversarial parent because I wasn't signing away my rights. So he was looked at as a cooperating parent because he wanted the kids. He waived away his parental rights. He put them as wards of the state. I refused to. I was like, "I'm not going to sign the rights." I questioned everything. I wanted autonomy as far as the doctors that they were going to be mandated to see. I wanted to read the rights because the court mandates you when you're in part of the system. They're like, "You're going to see our experts." And the experts that they choose, guess what? 100% of the time, they work for the state of New Jersey. They're incentivized to say that the parents and these children must be put in the system because it's in their best interest to fuel, the money machine. So, of course, I was like, I'm not a parent that the children are afraid of. The children are perfectly safe with me. They're not afraid to see me. I'm not the one hitting them. I'm not hurting them. But again, I'm not the parent that signed away them putting them as wards of the state. So when it came time to have the Title 30 hearing, I was the one that was the adversarial parent because I was like, "No, I don't need you to put my children in a system where I can't have access to their, psychological evaluations."
Wow. Wow.
So interestingly enough, while I'm going through this journey, I met other parents that have gone through this type of system with the DCP&P and everything else. And oddly enough, the same last name kept coming up, Dr. DeUrso. Dr. DeUrso was the one appointed to do a psychological evaluation on my children. I met a parent 30 years ago. He's going through a divorce in, again, Morris County. And he was assigned to Dr. DeUrso. Guess what? It's a family business. The same father that, yes, I kid you not.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a small, they pick the same doctors to evaluate. And it turns out that 100% of the parents that they put in the system, 100% of them, guess what? Need their services. What's the probability of that? Because it's a cash cow.
Right, right.
They don't care about the best interests of my kids. Because it was further when I met Dr. DeUrso, they picked your professional and he wanted to meet both parents separately. So I, of course, met with him for an hour and a half before him meeting with my children. And we covered everything. He told me, tell me about my kids. I did, both of them, what the conflict is. You know, I wanted for someone outside to kind of see everything that we were experiencing. I wanted an unbiased. I was really naive in the beginning. I really thought DCP&P was there for the best interest of the children. So I wouldn't sign away my rights to them because I don't want anyone to have rights over my children's files or details, because I've never done that. My children have had the same pediatrician since birth. My son, since his diagnosis, he's gone to the Children's Specialized Hospital and gotten care from Dr. Malik since he was 16 months old. I wanted the ability to know who was giving treatment to my children and what type of exposure treatment, what was the treatment plan, what's the behavior plan, what's the therapy sessions like, what are we looking for? I ask way too many questions. They're like, and at one point I was taken to a service, and the caseworker there said like, well, you need to sign this. And I'm reading it. I was like, well, what do you mean that I can't have access to the findings? I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, it's property of the state. You didn't pay for it. So I, stupid enough, I said, well, tell me how much it is. I'll pay for it. And she goes, oh no, that's not how this works. You can't see any of this. I was like, wait a minute. So I can't be in the room while you're doing these tests. I can't know that, you know, the questions that you're asking my children. I can't see the way they respond. I can't have access to the file. I can't have access to anything. And I should just sign it away. I said, no. And I recorded the call as well. And then she goes, well, you need to leave out of my office. And I said, fine. I said, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to call my caseworker. So I'm calling my caseworker out in the hallway, in the lobby of the building. And there's another lady there waiting for her kids, you know, with her kids for service. And I'm like on the phone very loudly. I was like, look, they're telling me I have to sign paperwork that's going to release me from not having ability to know what's going to happen with my kids. I was like, I refuse. So Gwen, I'm the controversial parent because I don't comply. I don't sign away things. So I eventually am mandated by the court because they're like, we can take your kids away. So I sign away this Dr. DeRusso. I meet with him. I was like, these are my kids. Dr. DeRusso proceeds to talk to my children, especially my son, who has special needs, questions that I did not approve him to speak to my kids about, such as, do you masturbate? Are your friends in school having sex? Are you having sex? Mind you, my kids are 10. Do you have gender dysphoria? Do you think you're a girl when you are a boy? So I'm upset at this point because my son and my daughter come home the next day and they're like, well, he asked me if I was a girl. Now, my daughter is a little bit older. They're 10. They're asking it was on a questionnaire about sex, gender dysphoria. And mind you, the questions are not modified for a child that's on special needs. And my son is trying to like, he's like, Mom, I thought you said I couldn't get pregnant. I'm not being, confusion. And I'm like, I contact Dr. DeRusso. And I'm like, what are these questions about? Well, you know, it's part of the mandate that we ask him. I was like, I met with you for an hour and a half. And no point did you tell me any questions about intercourse, sexual activity, masturbation. My children have been going to the same doctor, Dr. Kintaroglu, for, at this point, 11 years of their life. Now they're almost 11 at this point. He doesn't even ask them about masturbation or gender dysphoria or sex. I'm like, who are you? Mind you, this conversation is all recorded. So when I get my website going, this is the type of context that you have no control over.
Yeah, a lot of parents don't know this.
Oh, and there's so many of it. And that's why I'm telling you, record everything. Because when I went through the Title 30 hearing, I had one of the caseworkers literally, because I was considered the adversarial parent. I'm like, wait a minute, how long is this going to take? By law, they never follow the time schedule because it's certain 90 days, 30 days. None of it was adhered to.
Right. You're
Once
right.
they get their claws into you, I was in it for 2 years.
Mm.
And I was an adversarial parent. They're like, oh, well, we need you to take. Then I have another recording for you to hear where she goes, well, we think you need to have a mental evaluation. I was like, and who decided that? Who made that observation? No, I've never been a clinical patient of anybody. Mind you, I had been already seen, at that point, I was paying for 4 therapists a week. Say it with me, Marianne. 4.
And how much did that cost, I wonder?
It didn't matter to him. He was only still paying his $200 a month. For the past 4.5 years, his child support payment is $200 a month. Oof. Tell me, women in New Jersey, how much money are you getting? I get, for the past 4.5 years, $200 a month for 2 children, and
oh my God.
And not a penny more. But I'm not even worried about, let's not even talk about the money aspect. Let's talk about the violence.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I'm the person that's an issue because the Title 30 is against me. Mm-hmm. Remember, when there's an issue, it's the state of New Jersey versus the parents. Now, he's not getting a visitation anyway. Now, before DC PNP was called into the case, he wasn't doing his visitation anyway. He was just not showing up. I have videos and audios of that as well. So again, doesn't matter. Because non-compliance to judicial order means you're not complying with the parenting schedule. But it didn't matter. Because even when I went to the petition of motion of like the consent order not being followed, all these things happened. They're like, well, we can't force him to spend time with his children. I was like, okay, don't force him to spend time with his children, but at least force him to stop putting in police reports saying that I'm alienating him from the children. Because if the order says Thursdays at the school, I'm not physically there at the school. So why does he continue to fraudulently put in police reports? Now, mind you, I'm going to the police reports because I'm getting aggressive text messages. I'm getting called on the dental chair. You better go get your kids. And I had pages and pages of text messages. I go to the police department. I was like, look, I'm being harassed. We don't think you're being harassed. Because the police chief reports to the mayor. The mayor appoints the public prosecutor, Lisa Thompson. All these people. Mind you, for the first time after he goes to JBWS for protection, all of a sudden the mayor gives an award to them that same year. Now, mind you, never happened before. I have a letter that, and I was like, how was it that this happened? Can someone please tell me how this scratch him? Now, I have not had the ability to go in front of the court because they wouldn't give me another TRO, even though I had proof that he's not following the parental order, that he's putting in I have stacks of police incident reports. I have stacks of police incident reports where he's calling the police on his own children, get this, on his own parenting day.
Oh my God.
On his own parenting day. So the police then call me saying that your daughter is screaming how she doesn't want, I need you to come and get your children. I was like, well, you want me to come on? So then he'll report saying that, oh, she took them. But when I tell you, it's those type of situations. He has police reports saying that I'm not complying with the judicial order because he's going on dates and times that aren't even referenced in the parental order. I have a recording and one where I'm going to have to put all these up online. In the Parsippany Police Department, they have all the judicial orders. Remember, he's modified the parenting schedule 3 times. For less time, never more. Okay. But the latest one is one dated September of 2021. And that's the one that states every Thursday he's supposed to pick up the children at school. Again, I'm not at the school. I'm not there stopping you. But yet he's going in there, putting in police reports that I'm blocking him from. So then I realized what he was doing. So after a long day of work, having to go pick up my kids because he didn't do it, then I would wait till after I feed them. Then I would drive to the police department. I kid you not. And I would go to the police department and say, hi, I'm here in Parsippany Police Department. I need to put a counter incident report because I know that my husband had been here on Thursday, and I have again. I know you guys know it. Here's a judicial order, because I know they have it in the back because they have all the records.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go in and say, today is Thursday. I'm here because he's not complying with the order. And I don't want you to allow him to use this report. So I said, I had the recording that I sent you with the prosecutor's office where I'm literally telling her, because I put in a civil complaint against everyone at this point. I have internal affairs records, reports against people falsifying police reports on his behalf. Okay, so I told you about the 3 sanctions on the FN matter with DC PNP. So at one point, he becomes so insane. They give him like, Mr. Alfano, you have to help the mother of your children to find summer camp for your kids. I'm documenting text messages about, hey, how's it going? I'm documenting conversations with the caseworkers, like, you know, that it's now this time, and he doesn't do anything. Caseworker then comes to me like, well, legally the kids need to be in summer camp. Now it's up to you. I was like, so you want to know why he's changing passwords on the shared, and they're documenting it. They're watching him do it for 2 years under the care and custody of the court. They do nothing.
They don't do anything with contempt. They don't even look at
evidence. No, they don't. All they kept doing was sanctioning his parenting time. Now, Judge Bartlett at this point goes, Mr. Alfano, you're not complying. You're not doing anything. So what I'm going to do, the kids are having panic attacks. They're vomiting before and after the therapeutic sessions. The therapist is coming out to get me, mind you, because I was called just the driver, because I'm the confrontational parent. The judge, the therapist goes, well, you're just here just to drive the kids, because, you know, at that point, you know, they're all talking to each other. Well, this is the parent that won't submit. I'm the parent that won't submit. So the therapist, the 1 hour a week therapist, says, you're just the driver. Wait a minute, girl, it gets better. Yeah, it gets better. So he starts acting his usual self, insane. Under the care and the custody of the court with the 1 hour a week therapist. The children are running out of the room. He's calling them stupid. He's calling them, they're throwing things. This is under the care and the custody of the court. She comes out and gets me and says, can you try to de-escalate? I was like, well, aren't you?
Yeah, she should de-escalate.
And I have all these things recorded. Let me say it again for you. Recorded. It happens 3 or 4 times. It's to a point where she's like, I said, now the kids are having anxiety and trauma before. They're having trouble in school. They're having panic attacks. So, of course, all of this has to be reported to DC PNP. Like, you know, now the children, when you're in this structure, which I didn't know, again, so I guess I'm dumbing it down, unfortunately, for people. I wish someone would have done it for me. But when you're under the care and the custody of the court, you know, you have an attorney. Your spouse has an attorney. The state has an attorney. The caseworker reports that state attorney, and the children are given an attorney. I didn't know this. So that's why I'm trying to explain. At this point, the children's attorney puts in a motion saying these kids, they don't want to go. They're afraid of him. He's acting insane. Mind you, this is with him not even having, he's not having overnights at this point. They've taken his overnights away. The court has taken his overnights away. They said, Mr. And mind you, they did that.
Right.
Not based on hearsay, because I'm already the enemy. The thing is now, he's showing his crazy. Now you guys are watching it. Now it can't be like, oh, you know, she's the troublemaker. I was like, wait, I thought I was the troublemaker. Now you're watching what we had to deal with. And you're not doing anything of substance about it. All you're doing is sanctioning his time, which is fine because he was not even practicing his parenting time anyway. The children are got to a point where now they're like, we can't deal with this. So then the judge sanctions his time again. They're like, you know what, Mr. Alfano? We're going to do a whole 30 no contact order because now the kids are having anxiety. They're not going, they're having issues in school. My son is hiding in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
He's having nightmares.
Mm.
You name it, it's happening. So the judge then says no, 30-day no contact. Because my attorney and the attorney of the children put in a motion saying like, look, this is not working.
Mm.
This is all before the Title 30 hearing. And all of a sudden, out of no contact order, all of a sudden, he decides to go to their schools. Now, mind you, this is a man that never been to their school. My daughter has had open school nights.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter has had summer concerts, winter concerts. She got a full scholarship for music because my daughter, my children both play piano very well. They both read music. They play by ear. My children are exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
But my daughter also plays the violin and the guitar. So the senior year of elementary school, she wins a summer scholarship, music scholarship. She performed in 3 recitals. He didn't show up, not once. So now they're in middle school. There's a no contact order.
Mm-hmm.
The no contact order was written out in the end of April. End of April is the whole school year has gone by, right? Mm-hmm. They started in September. The school's never seen or heard of him. He never went to parent-teacher conference, open school night. He hasn't been there for summer program. She was the Wicked Witch in the Wizard of Oz. She's in chorus as well. She was in the spring concert and in the winter concert. Never seen this man. Now all of a sudden there's a no contact order. And what does he do? He shows up at the school. First, he shows up at the daughter's school. They've never seen him from a can of paint. Remember, the parental orders that he was supposed to pick them up after school on Thursdays. In a whole year, how many Thursdays in a school year? September all the way through May, you don't show up. Right. There's a contact order. All of a sudden, May 2nd of 2023, the man decides to show up once there's a judicial order for him not to do so. Close your mouth, girl, because you can't make it up.
Not exactly.
You can't make it up.
No.
So what happens? Out of nowhere, I get a call from the principal. Your daughter Bella is screaming and hiding in the bathroom. Screaming hysterical. She's throwing up in the bathroom. We can't get her out of the bathroom. And I'm like, what's going on? What are you talking about? Well, your husband was here. I was like, my husband who? I was like, what do you mean? The no contact husband? Right. No contact order husband? The no contact 30-day, he hasn't seen him never seen this man. I show up at the school. I'm recording it. I'm recording it. The vice principal calls me in. Bella's screaming. She's crying. She's hysterical. She's like hyperventilating. They're having state testing. He came over there. Supposedly he gave her a letter. And her first reaction when they called her downstairs was that she's panicking and she's screaming and she's crying. She takes his letter. He's like, I love you, Bella. I miss you. She's like, mind you, she's now saying that, her attorney in DC PNP says you will have no contact with him. You don't have to worry. Because at this point, my kids are like, he's going to kill me. He's going to show up at the school. He's going to try to kidnap me. Because he always told them, he's like, if you ever tell what's going on, he's like, I will kill you. So my daughter's like, okay, my children are we don't have to see him for at least 30 days. Doesn't follow that order. He shows up at the school. She breaks up the letter, runs to the bathroom. The principal calls me and he's like, we need your help. I was like, out of nowhere. I'm like, what's going on? I show up at the school. I have to get Bella out of the bathroom. She's crying hysterically. She's hiding. No one can get her out. And she's like, I need to go. I can't. It took me an hour to calm her down. And I said, Bella, I need you to stay because you need your state testing. I just need you to stay. And I'm looking at the vice principal and I'm like, can she take the remaining? He's like, I don't think she's able, because she's crying. She's hysterical.
Oh.
All of a sudden, my phone rings and it's my son's school. Yeah, the no contact order doesn't matter. He went to my son's school. The school's calling me. Vinny's freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, my son's on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, Vinny gets on the phone and he's like, Mom, I need you to come over now. I need you to come get me. I was like, I turned to Bella. I was like, I need to go deal with your brother. Just try to finish your test and I will come back for you. She's like, oh my God, he's never been here. What if he's there? I was like, I will come back after school. I just like, let me go and get your brother. Contact my DC PNP lawyer. I was like, look, judicial orders.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. When in Parsippany, in Morris County, if you're white, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Judicial orders, red flag laws, nothing like it doesn't matter. If you have all the right
contacts,
doesn't matter. So at this point, I send, I had the no contact order because after a judicial order, it gets modified. I'm like giving it to the principal. I was like, look, he's not supposed to be here. So what happens? The prosecutor, mind you, this all happens. I report it. I contact the kids, contact their attorney. Again, non-compliance, doesn't matter. My attorney calls me 2 days after and she goes, do you know an Officer Sloat? I was like, yes, I'm familiar with Officer Sloat. She's like, do you know that he contacted the prosecutor's office here in Morris County? And he said that the children were not upset. Children, Bella was not afraid. The children, that the mother is lying. So I said, what? I said, okay. I then go back to the principal. And mind you, all these conversations are recorded. I said, do you have a log as far as incident reports and everything else? So my attorney told me that I should ask you if you have anything just to validate what happened on May 2nd, 2023. The whole 30-day no contact order. He's like, we don't have an incident report, but we do have, we have internal notes about what happened and how it escalated. I was like, so can you please explain to me why is it that your police officer, that's a resource here in Parsippany, told the prosecutor's office that Bella was not afraid? And he said, what? He did what? I said, yes, I just got a call that your police officer lied on Mr. Alfano's behalf, that Bella was not afraid and she was not crying hysterically, and that you did not call me to try to get her to come out of the bathroom. And he goes, I don't know why he would do that.
No.
I said, well, he lied on the record for him. And he's like, well, I don't know why he did that, but he was like, I'd be more than willing to write a letter to your attorney and let them know. I was like, okay, you can do that. But that's not the only time. There was another time that he left Bella behind the school in 12-degree weather. And for an hour behind the school, and Bella was crying. She's like, I don't want to go because he's going to leave me in the cold. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So he was leaving our daughter in 12-degree weather behind the dark school for an hour because he wanted to be able to get rid of them instead of dropping her off 5 minutes to 9. So he would leave her behind the school, unbeknownst to me. And last time he had done that, he had left her and there was a man walking around trying to talk to her. Let me preference this by saying that my daughter's 11. I don't even. So she's 11 years old, back of the school. There's no cameras there. No cameras there. And there's men walking around and she's like, Mom. And I'm like looking at her like, what are you talking about? So my friend, who happens to be a retired cop, listened to this and he's like, are you kidding me? And he goes, I said, no problem. He goes undercover with me.
Mm-hmm.
We record everything. We're at her school. It is about 7:30 and in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And the police come. And it seems that the people in the school saw that we're parked there. And they're like, well, what are you doing here? I said, well, we're here because he's going to be here and he's going to leave my daughter out and she's going to leave her behind the school. And we're here to document it. Of course, they look at me like I'm crazy, like, oh, the Alfano family. Because at this point, there's 150 reports. Like all the police know at this point.
Oh, geez.
So we're videotaping everything. Sure enough, I tell them, I was like, you need to move away from this car. Mind you, I'm not in my car. I'm in his car because he would recognize my vehicles. I'm here to videotape him doing exactly what it is that my children say that he does. Because we caught him recording. Nobody does anything. We caught him hitting the kids. No one's doing anything. We caught him, there's black eyes. You name it. It's all recorded. They don't do anything. So at this point, we're like, this is why we're here. Please move away from the car. Mind you, the police park on the other side of the parking lot of the school. This is Lake Hiawatha School, elementary school. I'm telling you, at 7:45 a.m., sure enough, he drives past the police car. That's not a deterrent. You would think that a man would not drop his kid off to be behind the school in 12-degree weather by herself with police cars there. But no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh.
I'm there like, they watch him slow down, throw the kid out, doesn't even walk her to the back of the school. She then walks behind the school and sits behind the school. It's 12 degrees.
Oh, geez.
Not even a dog in New Jersey. You can't leave a dog out, 12-degree weather outside, but you can apparently leave your child. So he drives away. Police car comes, mind you, all recorded. Everything that I'm saying, everything is recorded. I've been recording Morris County now for 7 years. When I have my day in court, based on my civil rights being violated from everybody in this county, I have the audio, I have the video. In fact, I sent you a whole bunch of the video and audio for your review. Because again, in the state of New Jersey, one person consent. They can't tell you that you can't. That you can't record. You can. So please do. The police look at me and they go talk to Bella. They're like, stay in the car. I'm like, okay. I was like, 7:45, right? Just like I told you that he would, be dropping her off. I was like, wow, even a broken clock is right twice a day. He goes, gets my daughter from the back, takes her to the front, and tells the people, like, we need her to stay inside just so she can be warm. Okay. You would expect the police incident report to come back stating what I just said, right?
Right.
No. His friends in the police department. You know what they wrote? Wait a minute, it gets better. It gets better. There's so many instances where I have actual proof that the police have lied because I have video versus on what they put on the report. Police officers lying on the record to protect their friendships. So when the police incident report comes, mind you, I have a retired police officer in my car.
Right.
Talking to the other police officer. Videotaping. We have the video. How do you think that police incident report came back?
Pristine.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna have to send it to you so you can. I'm gonna send it. I'm telling you. When I put up this website, the police incident report says, on this date and date, we saw a suspicious vehicle in the parking lot, and we were called into fact. Miss Alfano and the individual who was a retired police officer is there, and we're speaking, saying that they're here. the incident happened. They don't say anything about walking Bella in. They're like, we contacted the Board of Education. Wait a minute. To ask if by law she's allowed to park on school property.
Oh my God.
To videotape the coming and goings of students. No reference. So I get the police report thinking like, okay, I have something tangible to say, like, this is neglect. It's 12-degree weather. I get the report and I'm like, what is this? Then they say, and we did contact Mr. Alfano based on the fact of why he left this child out in 12-degree weather. And you know what they told him, what they put on the report? It was his first time doing it.
Oh,
God. Mind you, it was like the 5th time, honestly. But I looked at everybody, it was like, if it was the first time, how are we there?
Right. Right.
If it was the first time that he's left his daughter out in 12-degree weather like a dog, why were we there recording it? And you came to me before and we told you why we were there and we have the evidence to prove it. So can you explain to me how every police report that engages with him asking for special favors, when you see the police report? So Officer Sloat lied for him on the May 2nd. The other officer lied for his behalf on the February 14th incident. Then there was another situation on November 8th, where he was supposed to drop off our daughter to get her hair done by the house. And you know why he didn't do it? He punched her and he bruised her on the face because he dragged her off the bed. Her face hit the counter. They lied. They put on a report there on this. Mind you, the police department, by law, you're supposed to interview not every party and take the other person's response. Officer Lowe looked at me and said, well, I'm not going to take your report. That's why there's so many non-compliance, not only based on their policy, OPA requests. I'm still waiting on OPA requests. It's been years. And I think I sent you one that outlines all the OPA requests that the Parsippany Police Department didn't comply with. But whenever you get a moment, maybe if you want to, have me back, because I know that time is probably of an essence for you. But I'll go back to why we're really here. I sent you the details of what Kayden's bill in New Jersey is. And it's about having accountability in the, family court instances where there's proof that one parent is a person that has, malicious intent. And, let's talk about what is malicious intent. So malicious parent syndrome refers to situations in which a divorced or divorcing parent deliberately aims to harm the other parent. In some extreme cases, mine is extreme.
Right.
The offending parent may even mistreat their children.
Right.
To tarnish the reputation of the other parent. I got an FRO because I was protecting my daughter. She has bruises here. And guess what? It doesn't matter. I'll have all the TROs and FROs that you need me to get. But I'm not going to have my children be in unsafe situations. And I don't care. We've lost everything. When I tell you we've lost everything. But my children are with me. They're safe. But now, of course, when you ask what we're doing, well, we fled Morris County and we moved to Burlington County. So the reason why I went to Burlington County is because I wanted to be closer to Trenton in hopes that I can get support for my children and I, because I was not getting support. In fact, when I contacted JBWS for help, remember, this is a man that was put in the safety, when they say let the wolf be in to take care of the chicken coop, that was him. When I reached out to them saying like, my children and I need help, we're going through this, they're like, well, we can't help you because it's a conflict of interest, because we're already helping him. He's the victim on paper. I was like, but no one wants to tell me how is it that he got the scratch? Like and then even when they put it in court, I was like, every photograph, every audio that I'm going to present to the court has a date and time on it. Why can't we find out? Why won't no one tell Mr. Alfano what's the date of that picture? Why can't we ask JBWS, why are you signing and validating and legitimizing a lie? Because I have a video evidence where he left without a scratch.
Right,
I have photographic proof of April 15th all the way to the 20th when he tried to return and wasn't allowed in the house. There was no scratch. There was no report on the police incident report that he was a victim. In fact, he was trying to get back into the house. I wouldn't let him in. But then you go to JBWS and you write a report for him. It must be. So he had been again non-compliant. Now we're in Burlington County. I got a TRO here. And you know what his attorney did? They're like, well, we're going to move the TRO hearing and put it to Morris County. It doesn't matter that he's abusing the TRO terms here. He's not complying with the judicial orders as far as parenting time or anything here. It doesn't matter. So now they're forcing me to go back to the courthouse that has been violating my rights from the beginning of time.
This is disgusting.
So why is Kayden's law so important? It actually gives a structure to train officers of the court and some type of accountability for judges and decisions they make. Because again, they're the only family court in DC PNP. You know, the best disinfectant is sunlight. And they want legislation in place that's going to release some type of oversight, some type of accountability, some type of, you know, physical footprint. I have my physical footprint because I've been recording everything.
Yeah, beautifully, in fact.
I've been recording everything because I sent you a whole bunch of stuff and I know you didn't have a chance to see it or listen to it all, but I sent you, Marianne, like 15% of what I got.
It was beautiful documentation. I mean, you're going to have an awesome website that people can go to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not only the police reports, falsified police reports, names of the police officers, names of the internal affair reports that they didn't do anything. I sent you the complaint recording of me between the prosecutor office and them rejecting my report. And I was like, wait a minute. I sent like 20 examples. Oh, well, no, we're not going to take your complaint. We're not going to take your complaint. You have to read that. You have to listen to that one. You have to listen to that.
Just terrible. Just terrible. What do you think? Now, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So now they're forcing me to go have my FRO hearing in a municipality that I don't even live in. But they control the narrative over there.
Right.
Which is why my children and I fled there. Fled from Morris County.
Oh, geez. Boy, this is just, you know, this is what every parent going through divorce and family court needs to hear your story, because it's so important that people, you know, if it can happen to you, it can happen to them.
I had that same comment. I told that to the lawyer that was appointed to me by DCP&P. And again, they all know each other. They're all friends. And at one point, I'm like, wait a minute, we are not asking for an adjournment under the DCP&P, because he was putting like an emergent hearing, like, I'm not seeing my children. I was like, and there were like 32 points. And I said, all of these are lies. I was like, first of all, Thursdays are at school. I'm not there. There's like all these. So even that, I was like, I went back and I was like, so what's the fine for perjury? What is the accountability for filing a false affidavit? I've been asking the same question for 4.5 years, Marianne. So falsified police reports, falsified details under affidavits, falsified information on motions. What do we have? Slander, child abuse to every level. And again, now he's asking for reunification therapy. Again. So this man has not seen his children for overnights now for 2 years.
And this judge, am I saying it right, Bartlett, has only given him 1 hour supervision.
Oh, that case, remember I had to go to the trial, the Title 30 hearing.
Right.
So it was, again, all of them against me.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Title 30 hearing, they could not keep me in there because, again, I was paying for therapy. I've been seeing a psychologist and a clinical social worker at this point for 4 years, for the duration of that time, which was 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I was laughed at when she goes, "Oh, who pays 4 therapists a week?" I was like, so during the Title 30, I came with my receipts.
Oh.
I do. Because they looked at me like, who does this
Mm-hmm.
Spanish woman think she is? Yeah.
Terrible.
So they had no choice but to dismiss me because after 2 years under the care and custody of the court, they saw for themselves their own self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the one not following the orders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the one hitting my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the one that the children are afraid of. I'm not the one not complying with the orders. I'm not the one. So I'm like, okay, so now you have me here jumping all through hoops.
Mm-hmm.
You've sanctioned him 3 times for non-compliance. Order after order after order. Nothing happened.
Nothing happens.
So at that point, they have to dismiss the case. And you should have seen when Judge Bartlett dismissed it, she kind of like told the lawyer, "I'm sorry, Mr. Moglia, but you did your best." Like sounding apologetic that she was dismissing the case. Mind you, my children at that point had been seeing a therapist that had testified on their behalf. One of the emergent hearings, that their father said that they wanted her fired.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted their therapist that they loved and trusted fired because he felt like he had no choice in picking her.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, there was another therapist in the very beginning that he fired because Bella started to tell him that about the abuse. The therapist was selected by their father. The children were 9 years old because it was early on in the divorce, and he picked Richard Weiner. Richard Weiner had a great relationship with our daughter, going to therapy. But Bella started to confide in him and
Mm-hmm.
saying about her father hitting Vinny. At that point, it was just assaulting Vinny. Because again, Bella was the one that he wanted always a girl. He did not want Vinny because remember, Vinny was.
Mm-hmm.
But so
Mm-hmm.
when Bella told him, the therapist contacted me and told me, and I, like, again, I'm an idiot. I'm the one afraid of him. So I told Charlie, I was like, "Look, you're going to get a call from the therapist. It seems that Bella has been telling him about the situations with Vinny." Like, what does Charlie do? He fires that therapist because he does not want the children talking. He wants us to be confined. He does not want any exposure to who he really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He fires that one. So this new therapist that the kids love and everything else, he got her fired too. He was like, "I don't want you." He was like, "If you keep treating my kids, mind you, it was all through the emergent hearing, and even like the emergent hearing through the DC PNP, they're like, we're not going to get rid of their therapist that they've been seeing for a year and a half."
Mm-hmm.
But it's all these layers of discrediting. And at this point, it's ridiculous. It's like he would say things like, uh, with the children fighting during their 1 hour sessions, about fighting with them about money, about not being able to see them, about gifts. This man has not brought a birthday gift or Christmas gift for his children for 4 years. Let me say this again.
Mm-hmm.
My children are now 13 years old. They'll be 14 in November.
Aww.
He has not given his children not a birthday gift or a Christmas gift in 4 years. So I'm going to say, I don't think all the sons of Italy people are bad. But this image of himself of what you think he is, he's not that. He's not that. And I think I sent you a few pictures of the bruises and the recordings of the children screaming, especially the one of October 25th, where my son is screaming that he's choking him and slamming him against a car. There's multiple videos like that and picture evidence. But so yes, now I'm being forced to go back to the municipality that I left a municipality that I lived in for 14 years. And I got in my car and I drove an hour and a half and I found Bordentown. Because at least it's close to Trenton. And eventually my case will be heard in Trenton. Someone has to hear me because these type of, police abuse, official abuses, I would put in motions and like, well, even if family court, well, nothing to see here. How is it that you haven't had any overnights in 2 years and you're still putting a child on your tax records? So he's been putting, every year he puts his son under the tax. Like you haven't even legally been around to put them.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter. When I request like, just recertification, look at employment. No, doesn't matter. Again, he stole their college fund. He left us penniless to be with his girlfriend. And so never looked back.
She probably kicked him out too, huh?
Well, I know in the beginning there was like an issue because I told you he left April 15th, 2020. And then he tried to return April 20th, 2020 with the police. But I Marianne, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. My thing is, all I wanted was a calm co-parenting divorce that my children could be safe. All I want is for my children to be safe. While he's with them, all I want, don't hit my kids. Don't leave them alone. He left them once with a drunken person. He left my children with a drunk person. That was another instance. That was in Springfield. He left my children with a drunken stranger. The drunken stranger threw a frisbee behind the house. My daughter, who at that point was 11 years old, walked around the neighborhood in Newark. Didn't know anybody, but the drunk told her, mind, because again, if you want to be around your children and then you aren't around them, that was another thing. No one told me until the next day. Bella was like, I was lost, but they found me eventually. I was like, you were what? There were times that the police were called when they were when on the weekends that he wanted to be with them. He would leave them alone in his apartment. And one time Vinny said that he walked out of the apartment because he was going to walk and find me. You know what happened? The police were called because my son was walking around his complex. Yes. And guess what? They contacted him. He showed up. He was like, oh, I don't know what happened. Da, 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 da. You're supposed to contact me, right? By law, right? Both told. The kids would call me, tell me the next day when they would be back. I was like, oh, yeah. And the police were called because Vinny was lost. I was like, what do you mean Vinny was lost? No contact. There was one time that he scared the living crap out of my son, that my son jumped out of a moving car and was running on the opposite side of the highway to get away with him. Mind you, I had that conversation with Charlie recorded as well. There's no denying it. He was like, I got him. It wasn't as bad as you think. I'm like, why is my son running in the highway to get away from you? DC PNP knows it all.
And they don't do anything.
Don't do anything because he's the good parent, because he signed away his wards of the state. Yeah. Oh, what? We need my kids to be put in this system. Yeah.
For money. It's all for money.
Yeah. Now I'm okay with this.
No. What do you plan to call your website when you start it up?
I sent you did you see the image I sent you? Alfano versus Alfano. The image of that I sent you. I sent you very nice.
Some things had a hard time popping up like that. Let me see here.
It's Alfano versus Alfano. I haven't named it, but it's definitely the image I think is going to be quite the attention getter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
because people have to, and I was gonna say, how can people reach you if they have any questions, or do you want them to come through to me?
um, they can yeah, they can definitely reach out to you, and you can. But I wanted to just touch base on the importance of the Kayden's bill. I
Mhm.
did send you the letter that I wrote to the senators and
Mhm.
the co-sponsors. I wanted, sometimes a bill doesn't get passed, and I had like the stats of how many bills are in committee and how many have been denied. And the biggest catalyst to ensure that a bill as important as this one is heard is by getting assemblyman and senator support. So we did create a template that we are asking your
Mhm.
audience to take the time. And I also sent you the link of what the, Kayden's bill is about.
Mhm.
As most everyone knows, it's a bill that was created and originated in Pennsylvania. The mother had been in and out of DC PNP. She
Mhm.
begged everyone to intervene. She was in a situation like this where, you know, the husband is like, if I can't have you on my terms, you know, I don't want you to, he killed her daughter. He killed her daughter, and the last thing was that, the last thing that I can really, make you suffer is by hurting your children.
Right, right,
Child. So that's what happened. And mind you, again, she begged the court. She's like, look, I can't have these, he's dangerous. Red flag laws, just even basically putting the gun in my children's face. He should
right.
not have his gun. But these are the type of things where Kayden's law has already been already and signed into law NPA. And
Right.
it actually started, it's now actually enacted and enforced as of August 15th, 2024. So
Mhm.
thankfully, anyone that's going through anything like I am now has an added resource. So I'm
Right.
begging everyone in New Jersey, please write your senators. We have the number of the bill is S2337. Uh, the senators is Raj Mukherjee and Brian Stack, and it's co-sponsored by Senator Turner. I've been writing letters, and I sent you a copy of the letter where I said how this is exactly what's happening with me. And the fact that if we had some type of oversight over the individuals that are, supposed to be really helping women and children, that it would be more of a not a hidden situation. We'd have more exposure. Now you have this handpicked group of people and the family court. They're the ones that want to have this, control of everything, because it's not like a jury of your peers. In
Right.
family court, divorce court, it's you and the judge.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. See, that's why I feel family court should be abolished and take it down to civil court so you can have a jury.
Yeah, because
Mm-mm.
based on his friendships, I have proof and evidence that actual police officers, and I'm not talking, just don't take my word for it. I have actual physical evidence.
Hmm.
5 or 6 of them undisputable, and no one wants to see it. No one wants to hear it. And even after lying, that I can prove that he lies, no one wants to see it. No one wants to hear it.
That's terrible. Oh, well, I'm so glad we talked, and I'd like to have you come back on.
Yeah, I would love that too. I will give you an update as far as what happens with, um, you know, with my FRO case.
Right.
And now I
Right.
have to go back to the municipality that my children and I fled to,
Oh,
fled from. And when I was looking for another place, I was looking into Rockaway, New Jersey, and
right.
I put a bid on a house there. And my daughter looked at me, and it was in between the house, and she was like, "Mom, it only took us 20 minutes." She was like, "I don't want to live this close to these people anymore." And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm going to get
Oh,
closer to Trenton. because I need someone that's going to be able to help me with civil rights situations. The police should not be able to get away with lying on the record. And I don't want anyone jumping in thinking that this is hearsay. I have evidence. What I gave you is
Yeah,
just a
she
taste.
has evidence. Yes.
I just gave you was a taste. Was
Yes.
a taste. Every opportunity where the police have lied, I have audio and video evidence.
Oh,
Okay.
terrible, terrible.
And the bruises on my kids' bodies, I have evidence and recordings of him interacting with them and hitting them, and even like the police saying like, what can we do? There are some good police in Parsippany, because they're like we can only take the report, like all we can do is keep. I was like, but you're taking reports that I'm showing you, this is the parenting schedule.
Right, right.
But the
Oh
worst ones
boy.
are the ones that I have video of how it happened, and then when you see the incident report,
Right.
100 degrees difference.
Well, I'm so glad you came on, and I'll have you back on. But hey, don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't even know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I'm very happy to have Isabella Reyes Alfano on and educating us on what really goes on and Kayden's Law. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for having me.